Welcome to another episode of Seeing Them Live, a podcast featuring memorable concert stories from live music fans. Everyone has a concert story, and hopefully, one day, we'll hear yours.
I didn't talk to him, didn't say a single word to him. I talked to Dave Grohl, all I talked to. I didn't say a single word to Paul Jones. And he was so nice and very quiet and polite and seemed like a lovely gentleman. And I sat there for 3 hours having dinner with him, didn't say a single word. And then it's like 5 a.m, the sun's coming up, I gotta go. And I walked out of Gibson's and I look next to me and there's John Paul Jones walking right next to me. And we walk out together out onto the street.
This is a quick note to our listeners. During the interview, Scott's audio track drops out. Fortunately, Bryan is the one speaking for the remaining portion of the interview. Our apologies to Scott for this technological glitch. And now, on to my interview with Horace Pinker. Today's guests are the core members of the Chicago-based punk band Horace Pinker. Formed in Tempe, Arizona, and now based in Chicago, Horace Pinker has shared stages with Green Day, Fugazi, Bad Religion, Jawbreaker, Agent Orange, Jimmy Eat World, The Offspring, and Blink-182. The band has toured extensively, including stops in Europe, Asia, Brazil, Australia, and New Zealand, performing in more than 20 countries and appearing at major festivals all over the world. They have recorded 8 studio albums, with their most recent release titled Now in the Future. I'm joined by guitarist and vocalist Scott Eastman, drummer Bryan Jones, and bassist and vocalist Greg Mytych.
God, you nailed it. See, we've been calling him Mytych for 20 years, and he just corrected us and told him it was Mytych.
Okay.
If Greg wasn't working, he'd be excited right now.
I rolled the dice on that one. So Scott, Bryan, and eventually Greg will be joining us because you guys are recording right now in the studio, Bomb Shelter Studio.
And there it is. You can hear it when I unmute. We are live recording right now.
Awesome. And I also want to thank and give a shout out to Mike at Earshot Media for setting up this interview. We talk about concerts and then we'll get into your music, obviously the new album and previous albums and EPs and such. So Scott, you filled out the form, and Bryan, based on some interviews I've listened to, I kind of know at least your first concert was Kiss.
That's right.
Scott, we'll start with you. Your first concert, again, I've heard this in interviews too. You saw Duran Duran, 1984.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. March 13th, 1984. It's seared into my memory. I went with my father. I was in middle school. I was one of the only men there. I mean, I was a boy. My dad was probably the only grown man there. They were absolutely fantastic. And I'll just bring this full circle. I'm going to see him for the second time in my life for my birthday in early January. I'm going to go back to Tempe and see our old drummer Billy and along with our friends and wives, and we're gonna go see them. So I think they're fantastic. I love their songs. I love their harmonies. I love the guitar, and I think they're also incredible musicians. And then at a certain point, I got into punk and I sold my Duran Duran records. Big regret. I had some cool imports and some singles. That's my story.
Well, you mentioned your dad took you to the show. Did he take you to other shows then?
One and done for that one.
I'm impressed that Wes even took you to that show. Wow.
Hey, my family has seen Horace Pinker play live many years ago when we were on tour with Agent Orange, actually, in the 90s. But that's about it.
Okay. Because my mom took me to a bunch of concerts before I could drive with me and my friends and stuff. So that's one of our episodes. It's called The Concert Mom. And I interview my mom and all the shows we went to.
That's awesome.
You know, I have a good friend in Oak Park who is a mom, and her mom dropped her off a few years back at Riot Fest, and I just thought that was fantastic. You know, her mom is quite a bit older, and she just got dropped off. It was adorable with all the punk rockers, and there you go.
Yeah, speaking of Riot Fest, I just took my 10-year-old son to his first concert, Riot Fest, this year. So I took him all 3 days.
So, Scott, we'll talk about your best concert. Was this Bad Brains?
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt. Bad Brains, 88. I mean, just the energy. I mean, they're incredible musicians. HR has the most energy of any lead singer outside of Chai Pig from SNFU or maybe a few others. I don't know. Maybe the guys from At the Drive-In have that same energy, but it was the most memorable, incredible concert I think I've ever been to. And as soon as it started, because there was this huge pit and everyone was a little bit violent back then in the 80s, I got punched in the nose and got a bloody nose and had to sit down for the whole set, but they were still that good. And I still loved it. And it was incredible.
Yeah, because you saw them at this place called the Living Room.
Oh, yeah.
And I understand that's a pretty small place, right?
Yeah, probably 300, maybe 400 people. I saw a lot of shows there, but yeah, they were incredible.
Wow, cool. Yeah, I just listened to some of their music last night, in fact, and I would imagine the whole place was a mosh pit, being that small.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I had to go hide at the bar. I was underage and I wasn't serving alcohol, but I had to kind of hide over there to get away from the madness.
Yeah, seeing those guys play back then, late 80s, they were in their prime. And I saw them twice. I saw them in Phoenix and in Salt Lake City. And what was so amazing is they played just the fastest hardcore you've ever heard in your life. And then the very next song is the smoothest, best reggae in the world. I mean, it was just like the dynamics between their songs were just incredible. And just, yeah, I mean, HR's doing backflips. He had like 4 huge dreads and he was like shaking his head. It was like a helicopter. Like you literally thought the man was just going to take off. I mean, it was just unreal.
I also remember for that show, they took so long to get on stage and there was a lot of anticipation. I mean, you could feel everybody was really excited and moving up front and trying to get a good view. But they took so long and, they were just smoking so much weed that came on stage. But I didn't really know that at the time.
I got to load their gear in at the Phoenix show. So we had played with MDC in El Paso the night before.
Not Horace Pinker.
Not Horace Pinker. This is like my earlier bands. And so we were hanging out with Dave, the lead singer of MDC, and he was like, yeah, so the next night they were playing with Bad Brains in Phoenix. And Dave was like, you guys should come. So we all loaded up and followed MDC to Phoenix and got there early. And so the Bad Brains showed up. And after we got MDC loaded in, we helped the Bad Brains load in all their gear and just kind of like, not really talking to them, but just kind of like, oh, hey, how's it going? Just saying hi. And then got to see him play live. Incredible. I think I was 17.
I don't think I've heard that story, Bryan. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think I ever told you about loading MDC.
A good one. I really like that story.
Yeah, several people that we've had on the show, they cite that Bad Brains show as one of the best concerts they've ever seen.
Yeah, there's been a lot of them, and it's real tough to come up with just one, especially when you're in a band and you're touring, because, I mean, you play with so many bands every night that are just incredible that no one's ever heard of, that no one will ever hear. And then you get to play with some more popular bands like Bad Brains. I ran a record label in the 90s as well. And so At the Drive-In was on my label. And so the Drive-In played in my living room at my parents' house and get to see that kind of energy, And so, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's a cool story. So aside from best concert, Scott, for surprising, and Bryan, feel free to jump in as well, you saw or met your future wife at a Firehose show.
Oh, yeah, but that was a great concert, though. Firehose were incredible. Mike Watt is my favorite bass player and a really nice guy. He's stayed at my house before and
Oh, really?
met my family after one of their shows because they always say they jam Meccano and they like to save money on hotel rooms. But yeah, I never got to see the Minutemen because they would only play bars when I was younger. But the Minutemen and Firehose, two of my favorite bands. And yes, I did see her and pine after her before I'd met her.
So then later on, you guys obviously got married like several years after that show.
Oh, yeah. But very soon after that, we started dating. I did build up the courage to talk to her.
Okay. Well, you had something to talk about, right? The show, right?
Well, really, we did. Yeah. We loved bands like Firehose and Husker Du. So we actually had a lot to talk about even before we got to know each other. So that was very cool.
It's always a nice segue. How about you, Bryan? Any most surprising concerts or weird thing happen?
I remember we were playing in Cologne, Germany. It was a festival, but we were playing on a boat on the Rhine River with a band called NRA from Amsterdam. And this boat was packed. And Aziz, the lead singer of NRA, did a stage dive into the crowd, and the crowd kind of picked him up to carry him. And there were ceiling fans in this boat coming down. And he got lifted into a ceiling fan, which hit him in the back of the head and
Oh.
sliced the back of his head open, and just blood went everywhere. And kind of had to stop the show and get to the hospital.
Oh my God.
So yeah, so I'd say that probably counts as a weird little thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Scott was there.
I don't remember that very well. It's a vague memory.
So Scott, we were playing with the meat puppets, playing this outdoor stage in Phoenix with the meat puppets. And Scott, so I played bass back then. And so, we're just playing our song, rocking out. And then all of a sudden I look over and Scott's disappeared. And he had jumped up, and then when he landed, he went through the stage. The stage, basically a big hole in the stage happened, and he fell through the stage. But he kept playing, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah.
And then we were able to kind of pull him back up out of the stage.
The other guys in the band, except for Bryan, didn't even notice that I was not on the stage.
I had no idea. I was rocking too hard, man. I had no idea.
So you had to kind of watch for the big hole in the floor then for the rest of the set.
I had to climb back onto the stage.
Those are good stories. I have disappointing on here, and sometimes I cover it and sometimes I don't because it's kind of a bummer. But Scott, you said you saw The Cult with Metallica, and Ian Astbury lost his voice at some point in the show.
I think he had lost it well before the show. And then they, powered through it, but they only had one guitar. Billy Duffy's incredible, but they didn't have two guitars, and Ian wasn't hitting the high notes, and man, they didn't pull it off in an arena of Metallica fans.
Yeah, one time I saw The Cult early on with Billy Idol. They were opening for Billy Idol in '87 at the UIC Pavilion, and one of their amps kind of started smoking, and I don't know, because you could smell the electrical kind of fiery smell, because we would get really good seats. I was a student there, so the students had the first 10 rows up the center, and they stopped playing, and the bass player, I forget what his name is, but he flipped off the crowd, and they just left. I guess you're done. All right, cool.
You have a similar story. But I love The Cult. I want to be clear, all time, one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, I saw them later at the House of Blues with Monster Magnet was opening for them. And yeah, they were really good. Nothing caught on fire that night, so they were awesome.
Yeah, my Cult story is great. I saw them. Guns N' Roses was the opening band, and Guns N' Roses was horrible. And this is before Appetite came out, and they were opening for the Cult. The Cult was amazing. But I can tell you, one of the most recent disappointments I had was at Riot Fest this year, a band called Texas Is the Reason. And I love that band. Love that band. I mean, that record is so amazing. And I was hyping it up to my 10-year-old son. I was like, wait till you see this band. It's going to change your life. This album was so monumental back in the 80s. And our paths we played the same clubs.
90s.
Did I say 80s? Sorry, 90s. We played the same clubs, but we never played together. And so I was like, I finally get a chance to see Texas Is the Reason. And it was just awful. It was just a shell of what it used to be. I was so disappointed. So disappointed.
I guess never going to play with them now.
I guess not. And my son was just like, what is this? And I was like, I know, it was so good back in the day, I swear.
Maybe it's hard to play a big stage, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I mean, they have a different guitar player. I don't know. It's just really slow. I don't understand what it is with older bands where they just have to slow everything down so much. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Take some Viagra and get out there and make it happen.
Speaking of slowing down, you guys have been around for 30 years. Yeah. And I have seen no evidence of you guys slowing down at all. I wanted to just maybe transition into the music of Horace Pinker. And like I said, I've listened to interviews with you guys in preparation for this interview, and everybody you talk to seems to have a super deep knowledge of punk music for the most part. And I do not. So when Mike from Earshot sent me an email, he's like, is there any chance we could set up an interview? The guy's got a lot of cool stories, which of course you do. And then I read the press release, and the press release says, I've got it quoted here, this may not be the first time hearing the name Horace Pinker, as artist has 8 LPs, numerous EPs under the belt. But if you haven't heard of Pinker, in spite of all this, you're certainly in for a treat. And I fall into that category. I had never heard of you guys before. So I downloaded Now in the Future, House of Cards, Copper Regret, and Power Tools,
Oh, wow. Way back.
sampling, if you will. And my question to you guys is, how could I have never heard of the song Punker Than GBH?
Scott's got a good story about that.
Yeah. So really last month, this made me very happy. And I hope Colin understands that we love GBH. But we wrote that song, and that was kind of one of the songs we were known for in the 90s, and people in Germany were into it. And we sold actually a lot of records in the US back in the 90s when they were records, CDs were getting big.
Yeah.
People don't know what CDs are anymore. But I went to see GBH recently, and I brought Colin a record. I didn't know if he would have it or if he'd heard of it. He wasn't really aware of the song. So we got a picture together after their set, which, by the way, they were amazing. They were really good. Here in Chicago, lots of dudes with mohawks, leather jackets, like old guys looking like they're in their 40s and 50s, which was fantastic. But I gave him a nice sealed copy and said, we have this song. Always loved GBH. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's listened to it yet. I mean, obviously you can stream it, but it was cool. He was really nice. Honestly, he was cool. And it was funny when they went on stage and they said, well, we don't have our original guitar player because he couldn't get in because of the criminal charges pending against him. We're like, all right, that is punk right there.
Yeah. Wow, man. So I started listening to these albums and EPs, and usually around dinner time in the kitchen with my wife and my daughter. And I just said, yeah, these guys are really good, man. And then we're listening to more stuff, and my wife would go, yeah, they're good. And after about the fifth time I said it, after several days, she's like, yes, they're good. They're very good.
Like, I'm still surprised. They're good.
I was surprised that I'd never heard your music before, but there you have it.
First of all, thank you very much.
Yeah. And then the new album, and again, I'm not a musician. It seems like the vocals are maybe opened up a little more as compared to what you guys did on your first album, Power Tools. It's a little tighter. I mean, it sounds great.
Well, Power Tools, the recording of Power Tools was fueled by Zima, just so you know. There was a lot of Zima involved in the making of that record.
Wow.
And Jim from Jimmy Eat World and I had the same local coach in LA. So I think Jimmy Eat World used to play with us back in the day in Arizona. They were our juniors because they were younger than we were. And, they got to be super famous because they're awesome. But yeah, so vocal coaching can help too. Shout out to my vocal coach in LA.
Cool. Yeah. And like around that time, again, some of the interviews I listened to with you guys, I'm just curious what was happening. Like your band formed in 1991 and then 94, right? Power Tools came out.
You're not supposed to ask a band their age, man. Come on.
So you guys were obviously writing music, but were you playing out and touring?
Constantly, nonstop, releasing 7-inches. Everything leading up to Power Tools. We did 3 or 4 7-inches before Power Tools. 3, I don't know, something like that. Of course, we did a demo tape. But yeah, we were touring. We started really going at it in Tempe, Arizona, and then we started doing weekend shows regionally in the Southwest, and weekends turned into 4 days, and 4 days turned into 6 days. And the next thing you know, February of 93, we put all of our stuff in storage and went on tour and didn't stop touring until 90s.
Yeah, because I read somewhere that you guys have done like 800 shows or something like that.
More than that now.
I think we've stopped counting now. I mean, I had a nice hard count for a while, but I don't know. I think we've lost that at a certain point. But I drew up a list of every city we've played in.
Hi, this is Doug, producer of Seeing Them Live. We're going to take a short break from this episode to hear from some of our friends.
Hey everybody, it's Ray the Roadie.
And this is Hollywood Mike
with the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast, coming to you from the Illinois Rock and Roll Museum on Route 66 in Joliet, Illinois.
Where once a week we are interviewing local musicians and singer-songwriters, and the podcast itself covers a wide range of topics, including, but not limited to, the history of rock and roll in Chicago, the current state of the scene, and the challenges and opportunities facing musicians today.
So join us every Tuesday for a new exciting episode of the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast.
Hi, I'm Jessica Ann Katina. I've always loved music and surround myself with it every day. I've sung in choirs, took digital musical classes in college, and used to work in radio. To further share my knowledge and experience with others, I created this podcast, Music Notes with Jess, in 2019. I'm so fortunate of the listener growth and hearing back from some of the celebs I discussed in past episodes. That's why now I'm ready to expand. So let's have fun taking weekly music notes of throwbacks, modern hits, and media. Thank you. Talk to you soon on Music Notes with Jess.
What was the last really great rock and roll book you read? How about a good rock and roll documentary? Well, that's why I started the Rock Talk Studio podcast, the place to go for recommendations of new rock and roll books and documentaries. Give me 20 minutes and the Rock Talk Studio podcast will get you caught up on the world of rock and roll books and docs from every possible angle and leave you with a no-doubt decision on where to spend your time and money. Want to know what to read next or which film to add to your watch list? Well, here comes all the top recommendations and hidden gems you don't want to miss. I'm your host, Big Rick. Join me for an exclusive look into what's hitting the shelves and the screens and get ready to rock your reading and viewing list. The Rock Talk Studio podcast, your ultimate guide to discovering the best new rock and roll books and documentaries.
Hi, this is Jamie James on Seeing Them Live. We all have our first concert stories, so please share them. We'd love to hear yours.
Now, back to the show.
It's always good to have that, to look back on it sometimes. Scott, I think you mentioned that, and correct me if I'm wrong, in Tempe and Phoenix, you guys were kind of developing the scene or nurturing the scene because there was nowhere to see bands like you guys. And so you were like bringing bands in from LA.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay. So you guys were kind of like booking bands to play with you guys at venues. Are they official venues or warehouses or things like that?
There's a cool Facebook page, I think, for the Silver Dollar Club. That was the main venue, and we had the distinct pleasure of playing our first show at the Silver Dollar with all guys from Descendants. Our second show was with Butthole Surfers. We played with Pigface there, which was actually great.
Horace Pinker was basically the house band at this club.
Yeah, and then my buddies and I, we formed a production company because I went to college in LA, so we had met a lot of like bands like DI and Bulimia Banquet, and they have kind of crazy names. So they're great people, and started bringing LA, San Francisco bands out, and then, word spread, and we would do shows for like these little up and coming bands like the Offspring and NoFX. And that's not entirely a joke, right? They weren't that big when we were booking them in like 91, 92. So yeah, it was really a cool time, and that was formative for us and for our friends too.
Okay. I didn't know that Silver Dollar Club because I was wondering if were people like mimicking you guys then in other areas, trying to do a similar type of scene, so to speak?
I mean, I think we can point to some concrete historical evidence that Jimmy Eat World liked us. At least Jim did. We were his first punk rock show, and we would like to say that we had a benign influence on them because they're an incredible band.
Yeah, because you never know who's in the audience. It's their first concert.
Oh yeah, and they were just younger kids. Yeah.
Yeah, what's crazy about this new record is that all of a sudden people are reaching out to us, whether it's via social media or at our shows, and being like, oh, I've been a fan of Horace Pinker since I was a teenager, and it's so awesome to see you guys. And I mean, people are just kind of coming out of the woodwork, and a lot of them are in famous big bands. It's really crazy.
That's cool.
Scott and I were just hanging out with a band called Yellow Card last month, and turns out that their bass player grew up listening to Horace Pinker and wanted to hang out with us. And now we're buddies with the Yellow Card crew. So it's crazy. It's cool. I'm not saying that we were influences, but I mean, there's a lot of bands out there that I grew up listening to, and that's the cool thing about being in a band and touring is, you get to play with bands that you grew up with and love, and you get to become friends with them. I think that's some of the coolest things about doing this, like Dave Smalley from Dag Nasty or Kevin Seconds from 7 Seconds. I mean, we got to hang out and be friends with those guys. And those are bands that I grew up listening to as a teenager.
Yeah, I think like all of us, your first concert makes an impression on you. No matter if you're a musician or whatever you do, it's like the most memorable thing?
My first concert was Kiss when I was 7 years old. And then when I was in my 40s, I slept with it. So, that was crazy. No, actually, I did sleep with them. I was flying back from Sydney. I was living in Australia, and I was flying to LA from Sydney, and then I was in business class because I was doing it for work. And lo and behold, next to me is Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons. They're on the same flight in the business class section. So we all literally slept together. And then when we got to LA, we're standing by the carousel waiting for our bags to come out. And I was literally standing right next to Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. And I didn't say anything to him. And I should have. I just didn't want to bother him. We were all jet lagged and been on an airplane for 17 hours. I missed my chance. But I did sleep with him.
I say to that, lame.
It was lame. Kind of like my John Paul Jones story. That was lame.
Lame.
You have a John Paul Jones story?
It's lame. It's a good story.
It's lame. So Greg, who you haven't met yet, who's working, Greg and I went to dinner with Dave Grohl, John Paul Jones, and Josh, the lead singer of Queens of the Stone Age. We went to dinner at Gibson's right down, Chicago. And it was a Wednesday night or Thursday morning at like 2 a.m. The restaurant was closed, and except for us, they opened it up for us. And I was sitting at the table in between Dave Grohl and John Paul Jones. And I was really, really intoxicated and freaked out that I was sitting next to the bass player, Led Zeppelin. I didn't talk to him, didn't say a single word to him. I talked to Dave Grohl, all I talked to. I didn't say a single word to John Paul Jones. And he was so nice and very quiet and polite and seemed like a lovely gentleman. And I sat there for 3 hours having dinner with him, didn't say a single word. And then it's like 5 a.m, the sun's coming up. It's like, I got to go. And I walked out of Gibson's and I looked next to me and there's John Paul Jones walking right next to me. And we walk out together out onto the street. And of course, word got out that they were there. So there's people wanting autographs and John Paul Jones is getting hustled into his limo. I just kind of walked through the crowd and went home.
Lame.
Why were you there, Bryan? What was the occasion?
Dave Grohl there's a family connection with Dave Grohl. And so they were playing the Aragon. It was them Crooked Vultures or whatever. And so my family friend who is related to Dave through marriage was like, hey, come to the show. I'm in Chicago. So I grabbed Greg, I made Greg go with me. And so we went and saw them at the Aragon and then we ended up backstage and then Dave invited us to dinner. It was a very rock and roll night.
Yeah, sounds like it. I mean, that's about as rock and roll as it gets, right?
Except I didn't talk to John Paul Jones.
Yeah. So you guys were touring Europe then early on. Obviously, that's when you put all your stuff in storage and then you guys went to Europe.
Hit the road. Yeah.
Okay. Because you'd also then, obviously in the States, there's a funny story you guys were telling about touring in this Jeep Cherokee.
That's what we did. It was a Jeep Cherokee Limited. We had a piece of plywood. So we had the drums where we would lay the drums out, put the plywood down, put a sleeping bag over it. And then you had to get in it from the back, from the hatch. And so you basically, like Scott said, you crawled in and you're kind of in this coffin with 2 people up front. And then we had a luggage rack on top where we put like merch in our bags.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. So as far as touring and such and playing out, like you guys were just down in Florida touring a little bit for your new album Now in the Future. But like in Chicago, do you hit certain spots usually?
I mean, used to back in the day, there was a place called the Fireside that we used to play all the time over on Fullerton. But now there's not really a specific place that we play. We kind of play random places. We just played Reggie's. I like playing Reggie's. That's a great venue. Another place called Burlington.
Okay.
We played the Ritz. We played the Riviera.
Okay.
But the best part of it is we played the stage. The drum riser was the stage and the crowd was on the stage. It was like a matinee. Wasn't it like a Sunday matinee show or something?
I like early shows now.
Yeah, I like it too. We just played Bobby's East Side here in Forest Park, and it was the best show ever. 1, the show was down the street from my house, but 2, the show was from 4 to 8, and we went on at 6 o'clock, and I was home by 10. It was awesome.
That's nice. Yeah, I'm a big fan of early shows and bands playing on time. It seems to be more common now. Back in the day, you could wait like hours for a band to come on stage, which could be brutal sometimes, you know?
It's brutal for the band because we're sitting back there waiting to go on, and it's late, and there's like 5 opening bands, and you're just like sitting back there going, "Oh, well, when are we going on? It's 3 in the morning." Oh, dude, remember New Zealand, Wellington? We didn't go on till like 2 in the morning in Wellington. Yeah, all those shows in Wellington are always like super late. I mean, the show didn't even start till like 11 p.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the worst.
Let's see. What else do I have here, guys? You were talking about fans. You're obviously getting new fans, I would imagine, right?
One or two, I think.
I saw, maybe it was on your Facebook page, there was like a School of Rock band.
Oh, yeah, that was in Oak Park, Berwyn.
Okay.
Yeah, so the School of Rock here, and I had nothing to do with it. A friend of mine's daughter goes to School of Rock, and I guess one of their instructors was a 90s punk rock person. And so she wanted to do a tribute to bands that played the Fireside Bowl. And so they selected like a dozen songs from different bands that had played the Fireside back in the 90s. And one of the songs was South Stanley Place from Horace Pinker. And he texted me and he was like, "You should go to Fitzgerald's Saturday morning and go see this." And I was like, "Well, okay, cool." And so I took my son, who was probably 9 at the time, I took him with me and got to watch these kids playing old punk rock songs from bands way back in the day. And then a group came out and played one of our songs. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Along those lines, I was going to mention to you guys, if you want to, well, I don't know if you get real fans, but you might get a lot of engagement on social media. My daughter's in high school and the whole 6'7" thing, you know?
Yeah.
Every time somebody mentions 6'7", everybody breaks out in this chant. And you guys have this 67 Cents song.
I never thought of that either. Wow, Charlie, we're going to bring that song back into the rotation.
Yeah, throw it on TikTok, man.
That's a good call. Didn't even think about that. Wow.
Yeah, I know we're coming up on time, guys. Couple of things. The new album, Now in the Future, and House of Cards, too. I forget where you can buy the vinyl.
People of Punk Rock Records.
People of Punk Rock Records, and you have different colors of vinyl, etc. I know you were talking about how the House of Cards EP was kind of released on accident. Does that in some ways sort of go with Now in the Future, or not really, but sort of? Since it was like half created?
Yeah, we had recorded it, and then we were in the process of doing a new album with our old producer, Master Orgini, who moved to Italy. And we had half of it done, and we were working on getting the other half to get back into the studio to finish the record. And then a pandemic occurred and put everything on hold. And then, like I said, I just uploaded it to DistroKid, and you have to put a date on it. And I was like, "Oh, I'll put this date on it." And I didn't even think about it. And then like a year and a half later, people started pinging me going, "Hey, I like the new record." I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And it went out to all the streaming services. So yeah, so kind of an accident. And then the record label, People of Punk Rock Records, that just put out our new album, were nice enough to say, "Hey, let's give this a real release."
Yeah, that song, Don't Say. I love that song.
Thank you.
That's a great, great song.
Yeah, I sang backups on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my band doesn't think I can sing, but I sang backups on that.
All of the music is really cool. You know, Three Against Me, Static Generate is an awesome song. And then that Fix Me song, which I know, well, now I know is a cover, but I didn't at the time until I heard you guys talk about it.
My wife didn't either. So when we did our first batch of songs, I was playing her the songs, and she was like, "Yeah, that sounds like Horace Pinker. Yeah, that sounds like Horace Pinker." And then that song came on. She goes, "That's a really good song." And I'm like, "Yeah, thanks, sweetie. It's not ours."
Well, that sounds good. And yeah, I checked out the original by the Doughboys.
Yeah, John, we had toured with his band, All Systems Go, in 2000. That's where we met John, but we were Doughboys fans before that. I mean, Doughboys were like the Green Day of Canada before. Actually, Green Day was big back then, but they were kind of like the counterpart to the Green Day, but Canadian version.
Okay.
And then they imploded.
But I love the new album. I love all of the work that I've downloaded. Power Tools, Copper Regret, House of Cards, Now in the Future. Now my Horace Pinker and punk gap is starting to fill in.
Thanks, Charles.
I appreciate it.
Maybe I'll see you at a Galloping Ghost someday.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to ask you, as we close out here, is there anything you guys want to plug or mention, like how do people find you or all that good stuff?
Just Google Horace Pinker and a bunch of crap will come up. us and a serial killer.
Right. Yeah.
That's what you'll get. You'll have to choose. What do you want to do? You want to go Shocker, or do you want to go Horace Pinker the band? So it's a big decision to make.
It's clear cut, though. It's pretty clear, one or the other, right? But I appreciate you guys spending time with me and talking Horace Pinker and concert stories and crazy all around things that happen on the road. And be sure to check you guys out one of these days live.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys. That's a wrap for our show. I want to thank today's guests for sharing their concert stories with us. Make sure to check out our show notes at seeingthemlive.com for links to websites, photos, and other artifacts mentioned in the show. I also want to thank my producer, Doug Florzak. The theme music for the show was composed by Doug and is featured on his album, Flagstone. If you have a concert story you'd like to share on our podcast, please visit our website and click on Become a Guest in the main menu. Then fill out the form and click the Submit button. If you seem like a good fit for the show, we'll contact you via email. I guess it's time to head for the exits. We'll see you next time on Seeing Them Live.